Forget Donovan Mitchell. Forget Joel Embiid. Forget Giannis. How long until Nikola Jokic demands a trade to the Knicks? I mean, woo-hoo, boy. Holy shit. I don't know. I don't know when is the last time that we saw something quite like that. Honestly, this is going to sound insane because it was, I believe, yeah, it's 28 years ago. It kind of reminded me, my old heads will remember this, of when the Knicks, shortly after Jeff Van Gundy took the job, faced the soon-to-be 72-win Chicago Bulls of 1995-96 and beat them by 32 points at home. As I was watching this game unfold, that's the thought that entered my mind. The final margin was actually a little bit bigger than that. Final margin of this game was 38 points. These Denver Nuggets are not the Chicago Bulls of 1996. They are, however, the defending champions. Were they at their best tonight? No, they were not at their best. It was the fifth game of a 5-game road trip for them. I'm sure they were very much looking forward to getting home. And it's okay to introduce that context into what we saw because the Denver Nuggets are so good that even on the fifth game of a 5-game road trip, they are not a team that you could fuck around with. And they should still be probably favored to win the championship this year. They still have the record they do. They went into tonight tied for first in the Western Conference. They had won 16 of their last 21 games. Nikola Jokic might not win the MVP this year, but he's having another MVP caliber season. We saw that tonight. The guy is unfucking real. So you need to beat that team. And most teams in the NBA, frankly, are not built to beat that team. The Knicks using, and look, well, I don't know where it's going to go from here. I still think they're going to make another trade this season. I still think there's going to be they're going to try to make a major acquisition at some point. That's a conversation for a different day. With the trade to get OG Anunoby on this roster, they did something that, interestingly enough, I think it was fitting that this all came together. And now after this game, I think a lot of the national media is going to start paying a little bit closer to attention to the fact that the Knicks are 11-2, or excuse me, 9-2 since acquiring OG Anunoby. They did something that was inspired as much by last season's world champion Denver Nuggets as any team. You could go back to the 2012-13 Knicks. You could go even before that to the 7 seconds or less Suns, and then obviously the pinnacle of the evolution with the Golden State Warriors of Steph and Clay and Draymond. And this notion of like small ball, right? That's always the term that was used, small ball, because you had Melo playing the 4, and and then after that you had obviously Draymond playing the 5. It's never been about small ball. It's been about skill. And I'm not the first person to say this, God knows, because many have made this point before in recent years. But this game, the way it's being played now, is just about how much skill can you get on the court at once. And that is skill in every way, shape, or form. Obviously, shooting is the skill that has taken the lead in terms of what people pay attention to the most, which is why it gets often conflated with small ball, because smaller players tend to shoot more. But I think more and more what we're being reminded of, you could go to the 2020 Lakers. You actually could kind of go to the Bucks of 3 years ago. Obviously the Warriors won it a couple years ago. I don't think any team epitomizes it as much as last season's Nuggets. And they're epitomized by a 2-time MVP who is, for his size, I mean, when have you had that much skill and that much size in one package? And then all the way on down, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., KCP as your second smallest defender on the floor, really? And could do all the things that you need him to do, put the ball on the floor, shoot threes, the whole thing. And then obviously he's capped off by Jamal Murray as your one small guy. That's skill ball. That's skill ball. That's what it is. That's why they won the championship. They did not need to sacrifice size to get all that skill on the floor. That's why they rampaged through the NBA playoffs. So what did this Knicks team do? This Knicks team that went into the season where everybody was like, well, I like it. They're pretty heavy on guards, though. They got a lot of guards. They're really kind of small. Well, they went out and they took two very good players on their roster, including Emmanuel Quickley, a guy who I don't think anybody watching this or who have seen Emmanuel Quickley play would dispute that this guy is not immensely skilled. And they exchanged those players, they exchanged both of them for, it's unfair to call him the queen of the chessboard because he can't do everything. But as far as a piece that unlocks everything else, OG Anunoby's kind of the queen of the chessboard. I was texting someone earlier today during this game. I won't say who it was, but they're like, when's the last time we've had someone like this where you just put him on the opposing team's best offensive player and then not that you don't have to worry about that player. Listen, the rules, the way the league is litigated today with refereeing, there is no such thing as taking an offensive player out of a game. You cannot do it. But you could come pretty close, and you could certainly frustrate them to no end. And OG Anunoby, what he's able to do, regardless of who the other team's best offensive player is, and you put him on that player and just kind of be like, all right, well, that kind of changes the game plan. It tilts that aspect of the game plan in our favor, and then everything just works out from there. People always try to compare basketball players to other basketball players. The only comp that I could think of is Deion Sanders. What did Deion Sanders do when he was in his prime? You just stuck him on. Didn't matter who you stuck him on. You stuck him on Jerry Rice. You stuck him on. I'm trying to think of other receivers from that era, like Andre Rison, Chris Carter, Tim Brown. I'm showing my age here. Didn't matter. You stuck him on any of those guys. Like, all right, well, I guess we're throwing to the other side of the field today. That's what it's like now when you're playing the Knicks. You're just not going to go in that direction, whoever he's guarding. And if you try to go in that direction, well, there's pretty good odds there's a pick six going the other way. And boy, did we see that a few times tonight. So getting back to what I was saying before, though, this concept of skill ball. The Denver Nuggets, they laid the blueprint. The Boston Celtics of this year, and I mean this when I say this, I hope Porzingis is okay. He had a tough fall tonight, I think. I don't think it was as bad on replay, but because they've had a great year. They've done it too. Size and skill. They don't have any positions that you could attack on the defensive end. And yet all of their guys that they put out there on the offensive end have so much skill. So they've done it too. You look at the Timberwolves to a lesser extent because what's the most important skill that you can have on the floor is that orchestrator. And yes, they have Mike Conley, but Mike Conley doesn't have the offensive game quite anymore where you want the ball in his hands all the time. So it's this delicate balance. What have the Knicks done? Yes. Do they still have pound for pound the smallest, truly elite shot creator, orchestrator, engine, whatever term you want to use in the NBA? Yeah, he's the smallest one of that elite group, but he's still part of that elite group. And what have you surrounded him with? Size and skill. And when you look out there on the court and you see Julius Randle, Julius Randle made Aaron Gordon look like a rag doll on one possession there in the third quarter. Pound. Missed a shot? That's okay. I'll get the offensive rebound. I'll just go back up again. It doesn't matter. He could do that. There is not a better combination. Not non-centers because obviously Embiid and Jokic are in their own category. But non-center division, where is there a better combination of size and skill, true size, power, strength, meaningful strength, #meaningful, in the NBA than Julius Randle? When you now add OG Anunoby next to that freaking guy, and obviously OG Anunoby comes with a whole different sort of, presence on the defensive end, and not to mention some fun stuff that we're seeing more and more of on the offensive end. Oh boy, some of those little middies, dribble drive, like we're getting into some fun stuff with OG Anunoby. That all made a big difference in the game. So Julius and then OG. And then Dante DiVincenzo gets to do his thing. Plays bigger than he is with the rebounding. I think it's not someone we've seen targeted a whole lot this year. And then obviously when you throw Josh Hart out there at the 2, would you love to combine Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart, the one player? Sure, but then they'd probably be title favorites. So they just and then when you throw in their centers, I mean, my God, what franchise, what team has ever had a center rotation like this? And I think I could have started with the centers. I made this comp during the halftime zone, and it's going to sound ridiculous. I'm just telling you all right now, it's going to sound ridiculous, but it was the one that came to mind, so I'm going to go with it. How often do we hear players on the 1970 championship team talk about Willis Reed coming out of the tunnel? The second we saw him come out of that tunnel, we knew we had the game won, right? Because all of a sudden, Wilt Chamberlain, it's like, oh, you know what? We got someone to go against you tonight. Well, Jericho Sims didn't hobble out of any tunnels tonight. Jericho Sims ain't going to win any league MVPs. He's not going to the Hall of Fame. He's not going to be one of the 100 greatest players ever lived. But what Jericho Sims did do tonight on the second night that New York's original backup center, because don't forget, we lost our starting center back in the middle of December. On the second night in a row that their backup center could not give it a go. And you figure, oh my God, we're down Mitch. We're down Hartenstein. We're facing a guy who, like, if he doesn't get bored and decide to race horses full time, is probably going to go down as one of the 10 greatest players who ever lived. And he's at the peak of his powers. What the F are we going to do with this guy? Jericho Sims came out there from the opening tip and was like, you know what? He's going to get his, and Jokic did get his. He's going to earn it. He is absolutely going to earn everything he got, and everything he got. And Jericho Sims made his life. He made him sweat. He made his life difficult from the opening tip. I cannot say enough about how Jericho Sims and his performance on Nikola Jokic from the jump was such a massive part of why they won this game. And like, I don't know how many points Jericho Sims scored. I quite frankly don't care how many points Jericho Sims scored. It scored 2 points. You could argue he was as important as any player in this game other than maybe OG Anunoby, who was in a class of his own. So our centers, the Knicks centers are a big part of that. Precious Achiuwa, I mean, I'm burying him, but like I thought he had a really, really nice game. And all the way on down. And this is a team now, partially because of the concept that I just talked about, but also just partially like what different guys want to do, what guys are good at. It all fits together. And shout out to Fred Katz, who was on the pod that dropped today, and the article that he wrote, the column that he wrote yesterday. Because he nailed it. He's like, all these trade candidates people are talking about, you could do a lot of things with this team. You do not fuck with this starting five. You don't do it. Because why would you? What reason is there to mess with this starting five, which right now is playing as good as any five-man unit in basketball? And you look at it and you're like, all right, well, what about this isn't sustainable? I mean, you say, all right, is DiVincenzo's shooting going to fall off? I guess it could. This guy's been a great shooter since college. He's shown signs of being a great shooter all through his career in the NBA. He was a really good shooter in Golden State last year. He's getting great shots. And I think Fred had this tweet, and it was either Fred, Benji, or DJ. I get them all confused because they're the only three people who I pay attention to during games. I'm pretty sure it was Fred, though, said like, they're making a point. The Knicks are making it a point to get set 3-point shots. That is what their offense has been designed to do. And since Tom Thibodeau came aboard, he has revolutionized this offense in terms of their shot profile. It was the first thing he wanted to do when he came in here, and he did it starting that first year, and it's only gotten better since. But this was like a new level where it's like we're just gonna hunt threes, and they did, and how many threes did they make tonight? Through the relevant portion of this game, right through halftime, they were only making 42% of their threes. They ended up shooting 39.5%. Like, that's not crazy. We've seen a lot of games this year where the Knicks shoot 40% or around 40% from three. Like, they can do this. The fact that they are purposefully generating this sort of offense, and can they do that sustainably moving forward? Yeah, look, I get it. Denver was not defending at an A+ or even an A- or even let's be frank, a B+ level tonight. But what Denver is, they are still long, and they still know what to do and where to be. They still know basically how to execute on every possession because they've been together for so long and they've been through so many big and tough games. Their effort does not need to be maxed out. The Knicks were putting pressure on them. And how are they putting pressure on them? Well, they're putting pressure on them with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. And look, I haven't talked about it yet. I'll say it now. I mean, it should go without saying. Jalen Brunson deserves to start the All-Star game. I don't think anyone would dispute that. It's not even really a conversation as far as I'm concerned. That's why I'm not like, what am I going to do? Yell and scream about it? He deserves to start the All-Star game. Anybody who doesn't think he deserves to start the All-Star game is a fucking idiot. So he deserves to start the All-Star game. And that's because he's been one of the 10 most important players in the league this year. That's how good he is. He's more than good enough to generate offense. And when I say generate offense, I use that term purposefully because, yeah, he'll get his shot if you single cover him, and he'll make enough of him to make you pay. But that's not all he's been doing. And, tonight he only had 4 assists. His passing, especially since the OG Anunoby trade, has gone up a level. And I don't think that's because he's suddenly become a better passer overnight. I just think this offense functions so much better when you have a guy who's automatic from the corners and who, like, OG's cuts to the rim are just so freaking dangerous. So that opened up the offense in a lot of ways. So you have JB at the kind of the alpha, so if he's the alpha, I guess that means Randle's the omega. And we've seen teams obviously fluster Randle before. I think he's been getting better at it. I think he's been getting better at handling all that stuff. And he had one bad turnover in the first quarter. I frankly don't remember another one. I thought this was one of Julius Randle's best games of the season. I know he scored a ton more points, but his ability tonight and this is always what it comes down to with Julius, the balance between, it's not even a balance. How many correct decisions are you making? And tonight I saw a player who made almost exclusively the correct decision. And it was funny watching the game there in the third quarter. And I think it might have been the opening basket of the third. Julius had just a perfect place pass to put the Knicks up 24. I honestly forget who even hit the basket, but it was just like double starts to come. Someone sagging off someone else behind the 3-point line. All right, Julius just going to rocket a pass, made 3-point bucket. Later in the same quarter, midway through the quarter, Julius had a drive that put them up. I forget what it put them up. 26, 28 points. I had lost track at that point, where he was kind of juking, and then boom, hit the lane, high off the glass, in. That's why you have to double him. That's why he commands the attention. So if you have Jalen Brunson commanding the attention, and then you have Julius Randle commanding the attention, and yes, I think it's important that Julius is taking more threes again. It was absolutely part of the equation 2 years ago, or last year, excuse me, and it needs to be part of the equation again. So I'm happy he's ramping that back up, because that will only help him, because then you will not be able to sag off as much, and just assume he's going to drive. So when you have those two guys, OG doing what he's doing, Dante DiVincenzo, one of the best off-ball three-point shooters or three-point threats in the league, and then you have name your offensive rebounding machine in the paint. I mean, where's the hole? Where's the hole? Where's the gap? Where's the soft spot? What are you going to do to slow down this offense? I don't know what the answer is. And then when you factor in the OG piece on defense, and then it slots DiVincenzo into place. And then obviously when we have, again, Sims did an amazing job tonight. Precious has been great on defense. But like when you get a Mitch or a Hartenstein in there to be your back line, and, as long as Julius and Brunson are just giving it their maximum effort, that's enough. That's enough. And all of a sudden you look up and you see a team. And then when you get, I thought Grimes' minutes were really good minutes tonight. I thought his defense was exceptional. Truly exceptional defense. He drew an offensive foul that was key. DJ's always all over his point of attack defense, and specifically the screen navigation on the point of attack defense, which they will absolutely miss if they trade him away. Actually, that might have been Benji tonight. Again, I get them confused. But he had a really nice game. Finished obviously 7-11 from the field, 19 big points. McBride I think he knocked down his first 4 threes tonight. Where did that come from? My Lord. It all looks pretty good. I mentioned Josh Hart. I thought Josh Hart played a nice game, doing all the Josh Hart stuff. It's a really good team right now. And it's not just tonight. It's since the trade. And it is amplifying and perfecting and honing and in a way simplifying a formula that already worked and just making it better. So, yeah, pretty fun night to be a Knicks fan, to go 11 games over 500, to really, I think, kind of, if there weren't already raised eyebrows across the league, raise a few eyebrows across the league, be like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is a team that we have to take seriously. Now, could they go out on Saturday afternoon against Miami and absolutely lay an egg? Yeah, because that's every team in the league pretty much. And we saw, and how do I know that? Because we saw it 2 nights ago when they came out against the fucking Brooklyn Nets, and even before that when they came out against the Washington Wizards. Because this team is not above playing down to its competition. But this was a great reminder, and I'll end with this. This team now, and I'm sure somebody has tweeted this out, so I apologize who I'm stealing this from. I don't know, but Nikola Jokic won 2 MVPs in a row. Joel Embiid won the MVP last year. Unless he gets hurt, Joel Embiid is going to win the MVP this year. That's 4 straight MVPs. They went out and they played those 2 teams that had the guys who are going to soon own 4 straight MVPs, and they beat each of them by 38 points. It's not an accident. This team could do that. This team is capable of that. And I'm really looking forward to watching them for the rest of this year. I know this is not the night to talk trades. Still excited for the trade deadline because I still believe that they're going to be a little bit easy to defend at times when it's the bench unit in the playoffs against the very best of the best of the best. So, we'll see about that. But man, if you're a Knicks fan, obviously if you're watching this, you're probably a Knicks fan. Pour yourself something tonight. I certainly did. It's a great night, really fun night, and not any kind of a finish line. This team has obviously much bigger goals than to beat the defending champs on a end of a 5-game road trip in the middle of January or end of January. But this felt significant. So let's do it. Andrew Claudio, you want to come up here and you got any victory laps you want to run?
My goodness. And this is where I need your help, Jonathan.
Sure. I'll try.
So I'm not going to take 10 seconds to laugh at the Denver Nuggets, the defending champs, and
Please
deserve
don't.
better than that. I'm not gonna. I have a lot of respect for the Nuggets. You're the defending champs. You're where the Knicks want to be. I am going to plug the pregame pod because I had the same pessimism that you had at the end of the Nets game, where it's like, I got no confidence going into these next 2 games. The Knicks played horrible tonight. And I want to shout out Ryan Blackburn, who said the Nuggets were on their 5th game of this road trip, and I expect the Knicks to win. And I was like, we're not going to have Hartenstein. How is that possible? And very early on, and this is where you appreciate the Knicks and may get a little reckless as far as I'm concerned in your evaluation, stepping on the throat of a team that was due for a schedule loss. Now, schedule losses can happen. Like we saw the Knicks lose one against the Clippers earlier this year. But the bigger takeaway from that Clipper
and the Pelicans.
Game, and the Pelicans, you know what? That's the other one. But the bigger takeaway from the Clipper game was, oh my God, look at the Clippers. And I think if you were a Nuggets fan going in and being like, this is a schedule loss, the other takeaway is, oh my God, look at the Knicks. And it's why, like, if they were playing any other team on Saturday, I'd be so ready to be like, how high can this winning streak get to? But I'm so terrified of the Miami Heat. I'm so afraid that this Saturday they're going to figure it out. So I actually have a hypothetical I want to ask you, because you share the same respect. Maybe not the same fear as me as the Heat, but you definitely respect the Heat more than I do. If they had Detroit's record, would you still be afraid of them?
I don't even know how to answer that, because they were a Pat Riley team would actually, that's a lie, because they were
10-31 a couple of years ago.
Well, not only I go back the further one, I go to the 2 years after the Wade Shaq championship when they started, I believe 10-40.
The Michael Beasley year. Yes. Yeah. They ended up with the pick that got Michael Beasley. Yes.
So yes, a Pat Riley team is capable of starting off with that record.
I don't even know. Would they still be the boogeyman? And would I still be allowed to be afraid of them?
You know what? If Jimmy Butler's on the other side of the court, and to a lesser extent Bam Adebayo and Eric Spoelstra's coaching them, then yeah, they're still the boogeyman to me.
Okay. I'm glad you feel the same way, because I want this win now. I want to test how great they're playing against the boogeyman. It reminds me a lot of, and this is the only baseball reference before we get to betting and sweating. 2006, the New York Mets ran roughshod over the National League for 3.5 months. The Braves were a 4th place team headed for 95 losses. They were still the 14 straight NL East defending champions, right? And they went up to Atlanta for one series, and I was like, you know what? They've beaten everybody else this year. Now go take care of business against the boogeyman. I want this win on Saturday, John. I want to get rid of the boogeyman.
Listen, we took care of the boogeyman in a couple of important games last year, and the boogeyman still came back to get us when it counts, which is why ultimately the book on this Knicks team will not be written until April. To that end, though, this Eastern Conference, I mean, it's been the theme. I mean, for me, it's been the theme since before the season started. It's become more of a theme now, and I think it's been emboldened by how some of these teams are performing, specifically the Cavs. I mean, you cannot say enough about what Cleveland's been doing. And I know I shouldn't have to tell you, because you're the third host of the Chase Down pod.
Clearly.
But yes, this moves Knicks into 4th, and half game up on Cleveland, and perhaps more importantly than that, 3 games up on Indiana and 4 games up on Miami. I like to get in that 4 or 5, you know, and I'm not saying Knicks can't beat Philly in the first round. I'm not saying the Knicks can't beat Milwaukee in the first round. I'm not saying the Knicks aren't capable of catching Philly for the 3 spot. I'm not saying any of those things, but whatever you got to do, whatever it takes, right? Cap, whatever it takes, get in that 4 or 5. And that's why, for as great as and exhilarating as this win was tonight, every win matters a lot for this team.
And I think the reckless side of me is agreeing with you. The 4 or 5 would be great, but I'm starting to broaden my horizons a bit. And every win being important may be because we want to host Milwaukee in that second round series, not have to go to Milwaukee for game 7.
One step at a time. They have a lot of ground to make up. You know what the nice thing is? I don't have to sit here and feel like I'm pandering to a pie in the sky that is not real, because I mean it in my bones. What OG does for this team and this defense, it's game changing. And who the fuck wants to play this team with this friggin' guy out there running around doing who would want that? They might be like, all right, we can beat the Knicks, but who's looking forward to it? Like who's like, yes, this is what we want to do for the next 2 weeks.
Well, you know what it is? Like, you compared him to Dion, and I'll take it a step further. It's like if Dion was also Randy Moss. Like, he also has an impact on the offensive end.
No, he does.
Is pretty elite and makes everybody better and makes defenders like to honor him. That they've gone to a different tier. I don't know where they are in this next tier. I don't know like if they're at the bottom of the second tier, but
it's the size again, because it's the size, because you have to honor his size. And again, the little flashes of skill that he showed tonight, not just tonight, he's done this throughout his whole career. Like there's a reason the guy has pined for a little bit more on-ball opportunities. It's because he can do some stuff. I know he's not great. He's not the best wiggle in the world, but he can do some stuff. And which is and the last thing, we'll move on. I genuinely do feel bad thinking to myself in the back of my head, man, I want to get one more piece. Especially since Grimes had a great night tonight.
You're allowed to think that way, though, because this is the new acceptance that we have. This is a new reality that the Knicks have. We're not just like okay with the 4-5. That's how good I think they're showing themselves to be. That maybe look, I don't want to steal DJ Zulo's take, but he's openly asking the question on Twitter: why can't this team make the finals? Why can't this team with 2 All-NBA caliber defenders and 2 All-Stars on it? Like, why can't that team make the finals? And you know what? The time to ask a potentially reckless question like that is after you beat the defending champs by 38, 2 weeks after you beat the runner-up in MVP, or excuse me, the reigning MVP on his way to his second MVP in his building by 36. They're biggest wins by margin outside of whatever the Blazers game was, right? It is Nuggets.
And Julius didn't even play well in the Philly game, which is what's really wild. If Julius is going to play like this, he's the key.
Mm-hmm.
We know what Brunson is going to give. If Julius is going to play like this, again, love what Sims did tonight. Adore what Sims did tonight. Adore what Precious has been doing. Get both centers back.
You do probably got to make a move. That's why I do join you. And they do need to make one move.
Fighting
even
it.
He said I'm
fighting it.
Why can't they make a small? They don't have to go get DeJounte Murray or even.
No, please don't get DeJounte.
No, they don't. But again, to Fred's point, they have something that's not just working. It's working like at the top 100th percentile of the league.
No, they need a touch more juice. So to put a little bit more pressure, because we've seen it before. God knows, we saw it in the Cleveland series, we saw it in the Miami series. Playoff basketball, it bogs down. Doesn't matter what your team. It doesn't matter who your team is. Unless you're going to be in a series like Kings Warriors, where they both sides just said fuck it. Most of the time, playoff basketball bogs down, and it's like, where's the juice coming from, right? Because we're feeling a little low right now. Need a little bit more. That's and then you want to tell me, hey, I'll take my chances against anyone. Fine. I'll then we could have that conversation. Because of what OG has done, and obviously because of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle all the way on down.